taking calls. Who's up first here? Thomas in Kansas, you're on the air. Thank you for holding.
Hey, Alex, what's going on, man?
Worldwide Transmission Against Tyranny.
Yeah, I just got my Prison Planet TV membership, so I'm pretty stoked about that. But kind of wanted to talk about the opium over in Afghanistan. And basically, they're saying now that the opium is going to supply morphine and all these other excuses, or how does that work exactly?
There's really no excuses. The troops openly guard the poppy fields. That's come out in the news. And then it's loaded up on truck and put on plane and publicly flown directly into Kosovo, which is controlled by the United Nations. And then it is sold in bulk to the mass distributors, and the money is directly put into European and U.S. banks.
Wow. So the DEA, do they work nationally, or do they work internationally with any other group?
No. They work internationally, but they're told who to go after. And then they go after smaller cartels, smaller crime syndicates, just like with diamonds. 98% monopoly just 20 years ago by De Beers, the Oppenheimers. Now they only have a 90% monopoly, and diamond prices went down by about 40%. So, see, it's all about trying to have a monopoly. The drug war at the international level is about going after their competition, the cowboys.
See, this is interesting because the NAFTA superhighway that they're building, or they're going to build, they're talking about doing more business with Colombia. Bush has.
Here, let me break it down. I've talked to people in the Army, in the Navy. They'll be there in the Gulf of Mexico, the Coast Guard. They'll be there at bases. They've got these big blimps tethered over the border, and they'll have a guy standing over their shoulder who's an intelligence, and they'll say, okay, we've been tracking this shipment. Here comes this plane right now, and he'll say, leave that. And then there'll be another one. He'll go get that one. And occasionally when they do bust an 18-wheeler with 3 tons of pure cocaine, showing it's coming directly from the grower, from the original maker, it was in the AP. It just said state police busted it with the Border Patrol, and the DEA showed up, and the FBI showed up with the CIA, and just said, we're taking it, and nothing was ever said again. Because that was an important Mexican politician shipment, and those officers, a lot of them are getting personal cuts out of it.
See, it's interesting because I'm noticing a pattern with, like, wars and, like, drugs. You have the Vietnam War, tons of heroin coming in, drugs coming in through, caskets, and then we have the Iraq War, and then Afghanistan. It's all very interesting.
Well, let me stop you. You see, and people always debate, is it about oil, weapons sales? Is it for Israel? Is it about having a base to attack other countries to be in Iraq? It's always about all of that. They don't do something unless it lines up for all their interests, their business interest, okay? Mm-hmm. And when you see all those interests agreeing in the crime syndicate, it's going to happen. Now, they print the money. They issue the money. Well, then why do they care so much about the $500 billion conservatively in narcotic sales a year in the U.S.? That's just the U.S. It's $500 billion in Europe. It's tens of billions in China, in Japan, in England, tens of billions in Canada. It's about what banks get that money to then loan 10 times that out in fractional reserve banking. But more importantly, you see, it's black money. It's black world money.
Right.
It's ghost money. It's perfect to corrupt the military. It's perfect to corrupt the cops. And then that corrupting process, you can now bring them into underworld black ops with the mercenary forces or with secret forces. And you can now deploy them domestically. And so it's about building crime cadres.
So they're basically like KBR and Blackwater and all these other groups are getting a cut, basically.
Well, let me just leave names out of it. But Mr. Prince is a Christian of the Lord. Haven't you heard on the news? He's of the Lord. But the Lord. But let's go back and the Prince is a Lord. And explain how this works. This is admitted in Vietnam. This is admitted in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
You see, there were 2 Talibans. There was the original Wahhabi Taliban brought in by the CIA in the 6 months, deployed 2 years before to attack the Soviets, get them to attack. And that was because the Soviets were controlling a lot of the opium coming out of that region. The globalists couldn't put up with that. So they moved in. But it's never over that one issue. It's about leveraging it time and time again. I mean, I told people day one, and by the way, Rumsfeld even admitted this. He gave a press conference 2 weeks before the attack. I'll never forget it on Fox News, and he said, We've already paid off most of Saddam's generals. We've already paid them tens of millions apiece. 3 of his army groups are going to stand down. 2 of the 4 Republican Guard are going to stand down. And some said, oh, it's a psyop to make him not trust his military. No, he was being, and then right after the war, he said, after the takeover, I never said that, but that's video. He said that. And it was true, because they'd already trained those guys in the 60s and 70s and 80s here in the U.S., like Saddam was trained. And so they already it was the perfect place to really have a staged war. You understand?
I see.
Because it was fully owned. Then they roll in, and I start telling you day one, hey, I'm hearing from troops at Hood. After they got back in a year, they said, man, they just walk in and give you 30 grand and say, now keep your mouth shut, but then they can use that over you. And that's grunts get 30 grand to 50 grand. The higher-ups, colonel level, get $1 million, and it's said that generals get 10, 15, 20 million. Commanders of, the heads of the operations are given hundreds of millions.
So basically the DEA just stays in business because they're getting trickle-down money.
The DEA only goes after cowboys, and they're compartmentalized. They only go after small operators.
I see.
Okay? Or, let's say some guy gets a deal. See, the FARC were producing a lot of the cocaine, about 30%. So they sent Richard Grasso in Reuters, photo, hugging the head of the commie guerrillas. And he publicly said, and it's U.S. law says drug money can be invested internationally in the stock market. See, it's all public. It's not even debatable. And then the FARC refused, so they finally killed him a few months ago. It took them 8 years, but they finally got him. And they have the GPS on the planes that taxpayers pay for, 24 hours a day. They shoot down anybody trying to fly in. They shoot down the missionaries flying in. And with GPS, they'll spray one field right next to the other field they own and run. So it's all a business. Okay, and so the DEA is compartmentalized. Most of them don't even know. They're only sicked on the smaller operators that are driving down the price, which the banks don't like. We'll be right back.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
In the near future, Earth is dominated by a powerful world government.
It's known as the Bilderberg Group. Could their objective be world domination?
For thousands of years, their dark order grew. Now, as they hail the birth of the New World Order, their great dream of exterminating 80% of humanity is at hand. For the first time in history, the elite's plan for world government is blown wide open. You will learn the secret that drives the entire New World Order agenda.
Bilderberg is making great progress toward a world government. Most people have no idea. They're not after money. They have all the money they need. They're after power. That's their aphrodisiac.
Order In-Game on DVD at PrisonPlanet.com or Infowars.com, or watch it online right now at PrisonPlanet.tv. In-Game, blueprint for global enslavement. You have been warned.